Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the LFS podcast Euros special, our final one in the series of Euros special LFS podcasts. Great to have you with us. I'm Caoimhan Ferris, and I'm going to bring you through today the one we've all been waiting for, the Euro 2024 final preview, Spain against England. We're going to be talking about their semi-final performances, how both sides got on, their route to this point, to the final, and also the talking points ahead of the game this Sunday at 8 o'clock live on LFS. But first, let's give you kind of a review, a recap of where we are and what the context of this final is. Spain are seeking a record fourth European Championship title as they take on an England side looking for their first in the final of Euro 2024 at the Olympia Stadion, or the Olympic Stadium, in Berlin. La Roja, Spain, are already the joint most successful side in the competition's history with 3 titles, level with Germany, and are aiming to make it 3 triumphs in the last 5 tournaments. England, meanwhile, have reached consecutive finals and are hoping to claim the trophy for the first time, having lost on penalties to Italy at Wembley in Euro 2020. Both teams came from behind to win 2-1 in their semi-finals. Spain saw off France in Munich on July the 9th, thanks to strikes from 16-year-old Lamine Yamal, making him the youngest scorer in Euros history, and Dani Olmo, 24 hours later, a 91st minute strike from substitute Ollie Watkins earned England victory against the Netherlands in Dortmund, Harry Kane having levelled from the penalty spot in the first half. That was England's third successive dramatic knockout tie, an added time strike from Jude Bellingham, preventing elimination at the hands of Slovakia in the round of 16, of course, before Kane headed an extra time winner in for a 2-1 victory. Switzerland were then defeated on penalties after Bukayo Saka had made it 1-1 within 10 minutes remaining of normal time. And Spain, they eased past Georgia 4-1 in the round to 16, although they had to come from behind in that one. Mikel Merino, 119th minute winner, earned a 2-1 extra time victory against host Germany in the quarterfinals. And of course, as I said, Spain beating France in the semis. And England beating the Netherlands. Well, both teams topped their groups. Spain, the only side to win all 3 games, as they claimed first place in Group B, thanks to victories against Croatia 3-0, Italy and Albania both 1-0. England were first in Group C, despite winning only 1 game against Serbia on match day 1, which is 1-0. They subsequently drew with Denmark 1-1 and Slovenia 0-0. This is the first European Championship final at the Olympia Stadion, the venue for Italy's shootout win against France in the 2006 FIFA World Cup final and Barcelona's 2015 UEFA Champions League final defeat of Juventus. Right, so the stadium has pedigree. These 2 teams have pedigree in the final. It's going to be set up for an absolute cracking game on Sunday. You know, 2 very good teams. Look, we're going to deep dive into both teams and talk about their semi-finals and the high points, the low points, and what they're going to give each other for this game. But to the point that that I made in that recap, you know, they've had a journey. Both sides have had a journey. You know, 6 games played. You know, you kind of know where the level of the team is by this point. You know, kind of the strong points, who's the best players, kind of the system that they want to have, the football they want to play, and who are their key components to making their kind of their attack work, but also how they defend as well. So both sides will have a lot kind of examples and evidence to go off for this one. So it could go one or 2 ways. It could either now the defence keeps up the hold in terms of stopping the goals going in, as we saw in the semi-finals, or both sides kind of cancel each other out because they're so well versed on each other that neither of them find a way through. I don't think that's going to happen, but you never know. We've seen things like that happen in finals where it is such high pressure that the defence has come out on top and no one wants to take too many risks to lose it, because losing a final by being too progressive can be seen as quite naive, but in this day and age I think you're commended for taking that risk. Anyway, back on track after that little preview. As I said, Spain, they've been the most impressive side of the tournament. I mean, we said it after the group, we said it after the round of 16, we said it after the quarterfinals, and now we're saying it after the semi-final, ahead of the final. The whole way through this competition, from the very first minute against Croatia on match day 1 of the group stages, Spain have been the best side. They've played the best football, they've had the best performers, they've had a mix of youth and experience, and the combination, a great head coach in the ways of making tactical tweaks in game when things don't go their way or they have to change things in game, especially against the bigger opposition. And that's another point. Spain have not only been able to do it against the sides they should be beating, in the likes of either Albania or Georgia, but they've also done it against the bigger sides, the likes of a Croatia, an Italy, and a Germany, that sides that aren't as easy or much more competitive with Spain, but they've looked comfortable in those games. I mean, we can go back to the Germany game and we can say about how it's and France. Sorry, I forgot about France. I mean, that was the semi-final, but we go back to the Germany game and to an extent the France game, where they were the same scoreline that Spain won, but very different circumstances, and that's another good trait to them, that they can not only win one way, they can win multiple different ways. They can hold you to the very end, try and play it out, and ultimately be galvanised by the fact that they've conceded, in a sense. Quite strange, but they did against Germany in extra time. They had that resilience, that fight back, where they knew they weren't going to be beaten. They were determined to win. And then against France, it was very different. They had a long time to hold on to their 1-goal lead, similarly to Germany. This time they didn't give it away, but it was a masterclass in game management from Spain the whole way through that game. I mean, they kind of controlled from when they scored their second goal from Dani Olmo from about the 25th minute right until half time. France had barely very much in the game. Then the second half, France had a few moments, but Spain held control, continued to be the commanding force, and France just couldn't really break out of that. And that would be disappointing from a France point of view, but from a Spain point of view, it's a very promising sign that your side can be the highest scorers in the tournament, but also be one of the most defensively solid teams in the tournament so far. And they were the only team not to have conceded in the group. They kept 3 clean sheets in their 3 group games. Yes, they haven't kept a clean sheet since. All 3 knockout games they have conceded a goal, but on the contrary to that, neither have England. England haven't kept a clean sheet in the knockouts. England only kept 2 clean sheets in the groups, so minimal differences in terms of that front. But I mean, you could wax lyrical about Spain and their qualities and the players they have and everything they've got, but I want to go deep into that game against France, because really it was a different performance than we'd seen previously from Spain. We saw them kind of fly out of the traps and kind of try and embrace their attacking quality and use their pace and threaten the opposition really early on in games and kind of not give them a chance to breathe. But actually, they did the opposite. They allowed France a bit of time, and it was a high-tempo start, but that was from both teams. It was quite end-to-end, but Spain didn't really kind of play their similar game in those early moments. They went behind, of course. France taking the lead, Randall Colomwani. France's only open play goal of the tournament, by the way. That was shocking. But they went behind Spain. But as I said, when they were pegged back against Germany late in that game, it didn't harm them. They didn't panic. They didn't kind of freeze up and lose their composure. They stayed calm and they knew what their task was, and they knew that going behind didn't change that task. They knew that France were going to give up a chance, and they had belief in themselves that they were going to take it. They applied good pressure early, France, and I have to be honest with that. I think France were impressive in the first 10-15 minutes. Spain really couldn't get the grips with them slightly. I mean, they were caught in transition quite a few times at Spain early on, and I said that was worrying. That was a worrying point from the Germany game and previous games, the Georgia game as well, where they were getting caught in transition. They were applying and committing too many bodies forward, and then the opposition could hit them on the break, and they were kind of exploited and vulnerable on that front. In the early moments, we could see the similar signs where Spain were committing maybe too many bodies forward, and France were getting good breaks, especially down that left-hand side with Theo Hernandez and Kylian Mbappe, who looked a lot better form in that game, ultimately losing, but him individually looked on a lot better form, although didn't score in the game. He did get an assist ultimately, but they just couldn't get it clicking early, Spain. And look, to the point, it's not how you start a game, it's about how you finish. And I think Spain kind of epitomised that as it doesn't matter how you start. They went behind against Georgia, came back, got back into that game. They dominated that game early on, but they went behind. Then they came back into it and unleashed their attacking quality in the second half. The Germany game, yes, they went ahead, but they were pegged back in the 89th minute. Extra time, they came out flying out of the traps and gave their all. The same here. They went behind early on, but they didn't panic. They stayed composed, they stayed controlled, and they stayed calm. And what they did was they knew their football, they knew how they break down France, and they were confident in doing that. And they came back again and got the result. A lot quicker than they did previously, but they did. And it was a kind of they were galvanised by going behind. I mean, we talk, and I've mentioned it about England a couple of times, they have to go behind before they give a bit of energy. I wouldn't say the same about Spain, but in that sense, when they do concede, they don't kind of wilt under the pressure. They take that pressure in their stride, and that man there on your screen, Lamine Yamal, I mean, calling him a man, he's turning 17 tomorrow, a day before the final. I mean, he's been Spain's best player. He's been absolutely sensational. Certainly player of the tournament kind of nominee, without shadow of a doubt, Lamine Yamal. And he's the epitome of that Spain mentality of, we're playing with freedom. You know, we talk about young players coming into games and they don't feel pressure. They don't feel that kind of that weight on their shoulders that maybe an experienced player does, where they've had that history. Lamine Yamal and other young players in the tournament, we've seen it the whole way through, they don't have that weight on their shoulders, and they're just playing with freedom and showing their quality and their true kind of abilities without any sort of pressure put on them. And that similarly kind of transcended throughout the Spanish side. Ultimately, yes, they've had more experienced players, but a lot of young players, the likes of a Nico Williams and a Lamine Yamal, etc., etc. Pedri as well, who was injured, of course, but that freedom mixed with experience seems to be a real kind of a proper kind of potion for success at this time. And Spain look really, really good, and I mean, they'll be tough to beat. Let's just say that they have that mentality, they have the quality, and they certainly have that great mix. I mean, we talk about title-winning sides at a club level. You have to have that good balance of players in their prime, a bit of experience mixed with a bit of youth. You need that fine balance, and at the minute, I've said it since the very first game of the tournament, that is the bare bones of a winning side. Yes, you have to show your quality in the big moments, and yes, you have to step up against the big teams, and yes, you have to ride out a few challenges every now and again. But Spain have shown game after game that they're capable of doing all of those whilst having the bare bones of a winning side. So they've got the perfect formula to win the competition. That's why they're here. That's why they're up in the final two, to win this competition again, because they've got that real great mix with a fantastic coach in Luis de la Fuente, who is getting the very best out of every single player on the field at any given time. I mean, we look, and I talked about the midfield previously about Spain. It wasn't as dominant in the France game, I have to say. Rodri probably did play well, but I don't think maybe they pushed the opposition back as much, and that's credit to France pushing forward a bit further. But Spain didn't have that kind of overhauling of territory, in a sense, maybe because they had one less player in midfield. They played with the two, and then Dani Olmo in front, with Fabian Ruiz and Rodri in those kind of deeper roles. So maybe we've seen a different side to Spain's midfield, where they can push an extra body forward into more of a 10 role and kind of commit further forward, and have those two sitting midfielders help them out to mop up the kind of the loose passes, or the loose balls, or the long clearances, to get them back on their front foot. So that was another positive sign from Spain, that they have different ideas. But that midfield offered a different kind of competitive asset to itself in the game. They played differently, but they didn't look any less kind of on top of things, if you know what I mean. You know, sometimes it can overhaul the midfield and they look kind of weak, but they didn't. They stayed strong. I think Nico Williams had a better day against France. I think he kind of struggled in the Germany game with Joshua Kimmich getting the better of him, but I think for a while he had the better of Jules Koundé, did Nico Williams, down that right-hand side. I mean, Koundé did get to grips with him a bit later on in the game, and then they made the switch, Spain, which is probably why. But that bursting pace for Nico Williams will be a massive threat, alongside Lamine Yamal on the opposite side. And then you've got two very kind of tall, physical kind of forwards in Dani Olmo and Alvaro Morata up front. So Spain, their attacking force cannot be questioned. They're the highest scorers in the tournament, but also their defence. And I want to slowly just move into the defence before I bore you of too much tactical stuff. But their fullbacks getting high really quickly. You know, I mean, we've seen Jesus Navas, 38-year-old Jesus Navas against France, against Kylian Mbappe, one of the most pacey left wingers in world football. Jesus Navas played him well. He had to come off injured at a certain point during the game. That again didn't affect Spain. They brought a change on. They made the difference. And Marco Correa on the opposite side. I mean, he's been a revelation for Spain. He was kind of in and out of the Chelsea team, up and down in terms of form throughout last season, but he's really kind of broken through and had a really good tournament. Marco Correa, I think he's looked very strong on that left-hand side, and then the defensive combination. I mean, Lenormand and Laporte previously, and then in the last game against France, Lenormand against, Laporte and Nacho, really strong centre-back partnerships. I mean, Nacho, very well experienced defender. From Real Madrid, there's not much that he hasn't seen in football, let's be honest. But overall, I think Spain, I mean, even the goalkeeper, I mean, Unai Simon, I mean, I don't remember that he's been tested massively in the tournament. I mean, how many goals have Spain conceded? 3 goals in the whole tournament in 6 games. And the keeper's probably not been able to do very much about any of them. So, yeah, I think that Spain have every single position on the field a very good player, but also a player that understands the system, understands the kind of his teammates and their positions and where they need to be, and they understand the system perfectly, and they're playing really well. They're all in good form. So all of those combined makes a very big chance of a team being a very good winning side and getting the job done. And we'll see if Spain do have that. They were attacking with fluidity, if I can get my words out. I mean, Lamine Yamal, we have to talk about that equaliser against France. That is an absolute sensation of a goal. He might not just be player of the tournament, he might have goal of the tournament as well. That is an incredible finish from about 25 yards to try and whip a ball like that into the top left corner. Just comes off the inside of the post, which makes it even better. Just the quality of that finish, to have the confidence to take a finish like that on in a semi-final of a European Championships against one of a side that hadn't conceded from open play, remember, a France side who were really strong defensively, but to have the confidence to go from that distance against a really strong keeper in such a high-pressured moment, being behind, that just shows the freedom he's playing with, and reiterates my point of they're playing with freedom. They don't feel pressure. A player that felt pressure would not take that chance and would not take that strike. But with that freedom that he feels in the side, that kind of lack of pressure, obviously, just allows him to show his true talent. And if that's his talent, I mean, he will have a very bright future and an amazing career. But, I mean, we're not going to hype him up over too much, because you can kind of harm a player by overhyping them at such a young age. But Lamine Yamal has got talent in abundance, and he showed that with that unbelievable strike. I mean, you could watch it 1,000 times and still not get bored. It was an incredible finish. I mean, we'll talk about Lamine Yamal's great effort. I mean, Dani Olmo's isn't quite the same. It doesn't end up being ultimately the nicest thing to watch, because of the way it goes in, but the touch to take it round the defender, I think it was Caoimhan that was in his way, the skill to break past the man in the box, tight spaces, and just to have that kind of precision in your kind of strike, to shoot it across goal in between about 4 or 5 players, and then ultimately takes a deflection. It did go down as a Dani Olmo goal because the shot was on target, so therefore the player that takes the strike gets the goal. And it doesn't go down as an own goal. But Jules Koundé, I said at the time, when that goal went in, France are getting a taste of their own medicine, because France had got through to this point through a couple of own goals already in the tournament from the teams they were playing against, and maybe that was just a bit of justice in the tournament overall. But Dani Olmo got the goal, really good goal. But then on, that was at the 25th minute. Spain just cruised their way through. They looked comfortable, they looked calm, and they had a couple of chances to make it 3-1 to really dead the game. But France kept them in it, which is a credit to France in the fact that they didn't completely fall away, and Spain didn't kind of run away with the victory. France kept it alive, and they probably had one or two chances late on to try and equalise, but then again, too little, too late, and nothing came of it. But Spain held on, got through it, and that fight and hard work. I said, you can have all the quality, all the talent, kind of all the skill you want, but if you can't fight as a team in the hard moments and work together to try and see out a victory and kind of grind out a result, then you're going to struggle when you play up against the more physical oppositions. And Spain have got through quite physical teams in the tournament so far. When we talk about Croatia, very physical. Italy wanted to be physical. Albania, not so much. They tried to play skill and they got caught out from that. Georgia, physical. Germany, very physical. And then France, less physical, but they can throw in a challenge. So Spain have come through that in nearly every game, and they've come out on top. When teams are trying to drag them down to their level to a more physical game, because they know they can't outskill Spain. I mean, that's just impossible. But they've tried to drag them down to their level, and Spain have rose above that time and time again, and have looked quite kind of unstoppable when they get going and when they get into their kind of rhythm. As I said, they took control of the game and they never looked back, and that's exactly the type of mentality that they need to have, a winning team needs to have. And then France struggled as the game went on. They kind of lost their way a bit, really lost it. But I'd say Spain are definitely the favourites going into this. I mean, they're so closely matched, these two teams, very different ideas, kind of a lot of different critics of England, but ultimately they've both got to this point. They're both in the final, and it doesn't matter how you do it, it matters about that you get there and you get the job done. And so far there's no evidence to say that Gareth Southgate's team haven't been able to get the job done, because they're here. But I would say, on the basis of on paper and looking at the two sides and the way they've played, I would say Spain are favourites, because they've been arguably the best team of the tournament. But you never know, finals are strange things, and the best team doesn't always win the trophy. And we'll see if that progresses ultimately in this one. I mean, arguably, in 2016, France were the better side. They lost in the final. And then maybe England were probably the better team in Euro 2020 in the way that they had the whole atmosphere, the whole kind of stadium galvanised behind them, and they were playing the better football. But ultimately, Italy came out on top. So it's not always the best side wins the trophy. Or the favourites, shall I say, that win the trophy. It's about how you perform in the 90 minutes or 120 minutes or even on penalties in the final that is the difference. And a lot of similarities between these two teams from their semi-finals. I'm going to talk about England now and their performance in their semi-final, because Spain, they came from behind, they won 2-1, they had that mentality comeback, but it was kind of one of their first occasions where they have been kind of pegged back and had to answer many questions, other than the Georgia game where, I mean, it was kind of a fluke goal. But other than that, other than the France goal where France took the lead in the semi-final, we haven't really seen Spain have to come from behind or kind of have to galvanise their side, whereas England, we've seen that in nearly every game so far from England. Let's talk about England then, their semi-final. Individual moments, again. Ollie Watkins scoring the winning goal, Harry Kane with his penalty. Individual moments of brilliance and quality, getting them over the line. Yes, sometimes you need that, and sometimes you need a bit of luck. I mean, we'll talk about the penalty in a minute, but sometimes you need a bit of luck to get over the line and kind of get that extra bit of advantage, that goal that makes the difference in the end, that gets you across the line, that you aren't really massively playing to your best, but you know that, but you've got great individuals that can get you over the line. I mean, a lot of similarities with Man United when they had Ronaldo. They weren't playing the best football, but they had a superstar in the team that could get them over the line time and time again. England have that, but they have multiple players that can get them over the line, and we've seen that the whole way through. I mean, we talk about Jude Bellingham in the game against Serbia on match day 1. The two other group games, the draws were pretty dull. The round of 16 game, again, Jude Bellingham getting that equalising goal, then Harry Kane scoring the winner. Then in the quarterfinals, in their quarterfinal, England, they got over the line, having to come from behind against Switzerland and then winning on penalties. That moment of brilliance from Bukayo Saka. And then in the semi-final, exactly the same thing. Harry Kane with the equaliser and Ollie Watkins with a moment of brilliance in the last few seconds to get that result over the line. England have done it time and time and time again throughout the tournament where they've relied upon individuals, but it's worked. Now the question stands, is that a reliable kind of attack in the game? Is that reliable enough that it will get you over the line to win the tournament? We've seen in the past it has been for previous countries, but is it consistent? Well, so far it's been consistent, but is there a time where that little bit of luck, that little bit of individual brilliance will run out, and you will run out of steam, and you'll not have that one moment, and kind of you don't have that great football that you've been playing to fall back on, which maybe Spain would have, where they can grind it out a bit more, whereas England need to rely on their best players showing up. Otherwise, they kind of struggle to score. I mean, we've seen that in the Slovenia game in the group, where none of their individuals really massively showed up. It's ultimately against Denmark, probably the same thing, where their individuals didn't show up, didn't offer that moment, and ultimately they paid the price because, I mean, they drew both games, but they didn't kind of get them over the line at that point. But they didn't have great football to fall back upon, so therefore they struggled to get anything positive out of the game, and that's why probably the criticism was so large. Ultimately, they started slow again, England, in that game. I mean, as I said with Spain, it doesn't matter how you start, it's about how you finish, of course, but a slow start is a concerning point. You don't want to keep giving away goals, you don't want to keep kind of giving the opposition that advantage, that leg up in the game. They went behind, Netherlands took the lead early on, Xavi Simons with a wonderful strike, again, great quality from Xavi Simons to give the Netherlands the lead. But I think England started with more control in the game, to be honest. They did start with good possession early on, and they kind of didn't give the Netherlands very much to show in the first 10-15 minutes, but with their one moment, the Netherlands took their chance, they took the lead, and kind of shell-shocked England a slight bit. But when England went behind, as I said before, they reacted, they gave energy, and that's how they got the penalty. They had a couple of chances, and ultimately the ball drops into the box. The defender tries to defend it. Trying to remember who it was that tried to defend it. I think it was Denzel Dumfries. It was who gave away the penalty. Dumfries gives away the penalty, and you're kind of thinking, going, that's not a penalty. The referee didn't give it first time round. I mean, on real time, the referee didn't think it was a penalty. He said play on. I think he gave a corner or a goal kick, whatever. He didn't look like an issue. And then we were told, oh, they've checked it, VAR, they're not going to do anything about it. Then quickly that changed. VAR were checking it and were sending the referee to the screen. This all happened within the space of 10-15 seconds. 1 minute we're told it's not happening, then it is happening, and then the referee sent to the screen. And then he goes over to have a look, changes his decision, and gives a penalty. But you're sitting there like, what? What's happened? Where's this come from? I don't think it was a penalty, and I think a lot of English pundits have agreed with the point that it was a disgraceful decision. And it was. Shocking decision. It was never in a million years a penalty. If a defender can't defend in his own box, then what's the point? Just take them all out of the game and let the striker score uncontested every single time. Harry Kane was stretching, Denzel Dumfries was stretching, they both collide. It's unfortunate, it's unlucky, but it's not a penalty. None of the England players were claiming it, which is crucial. I don't think anybody would have been annoyed if the penalty wasn't given. England probably felt that they got let off the hook a bit with getting that penalty. I mean, yes, you still have to score the penalty and all that, but at the same time, I'm not blaming the England players, obviously not. I'm blaming the referee for the idiocy. Stick to your decision. Don't feel pressured by going to the screen and wanting to change your decision. And look, there was a lot of controversy about that at the referee for the England game previously, Felix Fire. Now, I'm not going to go into that because I feel that's very harsh, and that's all in the past, and we leave that, kind of let it lie. But the indecision from the referee, he made the decision initially, said, no penalty, let's play on, and then gets pressured by going to the screen, and then feeling like he has to make it a change in decision. I don't know what he saw on that replay in the slow-mo that made him think that that was a penalty. I didn't think it was a penalty. The vast majority of people inside the stadium, or pundits, or kind of fans, did not think it was a penalty. How the referee thought it was, I do not know. But at the end of the day, that's what happens. Sometimes you get a decision goes against you, and the Netherlands pretty hard done by that. But ultimately, that's not an excuse. It's not an excuse to say, oh, we lost because they give us away a penalty in the 18th minute of the game, and England were 1-1 at that point. You went on to lose, so ultimately, don't blame your defeat on the bad penalty decision. That's not an excuse. By the same token, and England maybe felt a bit of luck, but sometimes, as many people say, you need a bit of luck at times, something to go your way to help you through. Ultimately, they continued in the same vein, England, from previously, where they did galvanise themselves to try and go and get that equaliser. They ultimately did. A controversial penalty, of course, but their comeback ability is what is really impressive about England. You know, you can say all you want about their football not being great, and the tactics being wrong, and the balance being wrong, and players not playing in the right position, and this and that and the other not going right. But one thing is for certain, they've got comeback ability, they've got mentality, and they are certainly not ones for giving up. They give energy till the very last second, and they give their everything. And that's probably all you can really ask from a set of players in a team, is to give their everything for the team. Yes, show up with a bit of quality every now and again, of course, but also that's down to the coach to make the tactics, to get the tactics right, and to make sure the players know what their jobs are. That's not down to the players to know individually what each other needs to be doing. Yes, you will learn that in time, but the tactics are what the head coach and the manager has to decide, not the players. So I wouldn't blame the players for not playing and ultimately the most crisp and beautiful attacking football we've seen. That's not a problem. But the energy, the quality, the kind of nay say die attitude, the like never knowing when you're beaten kind of idea, that's the type of mentality you need to win competitions, to win knockout games of football, to have that belief in yourself that, yeah, we might not be playing the best football, we might not have kind of our tactics right, but we're going to fight to the very death, and we're going to give our everything for our country. And that's credit to them, because they've come under a lot of criticism. They've been very harshly taken. I mean, I take myself in that. I have been critical, mainly of the head coach and the manager, and not the players. I think the players have done everything they could with what they've been given, and kind of the positions they've been given, and the tactics. But they've proved their doubters wrong. Again, their critics have been silenced. I said it when in the commentary. Their critics silenced. Their doubters kind of proved wrong again, because their mentality and their desire and their fight for their country, that passion that they have, has carried them over the line again. Maybe that won't be enough to get them over the line in the final. Probably not. They'll probably need to get something right tactically. I think they've been improving England tactically. That back three looks a lot stronger. But it's that comeback ability, that mentality, that's got them to this point. I don't think they should go away from that, of course, hone in on that, but also have a bit of tactical balance as well. One thing I would say for Spain, if it's a warning sign, do not score first against England. You do not want to score first against England. 3 knockout games in a row where England have conceded first, and they've gone on to progress from each and every one. The Slovakia game in the round of 16, the Switzerland game in the quarterfinals, and then the Netherlands in the semi-finals. All 3 games England conceded first and went on to progress to the next stage. Do not score first, Spain, if you want to win, basically. The back 3, as I mentioned there, they looked kind of more controlled, England. I mentioned it after their quarterfinal against Switzerland. They looked a lot more controlled on the ball with a back 3. They brought Guehi back in after he was suspended for the Switzerland game, but it didn't make any difference. Stones, Walker, Guehi, really strong. Again, that back 3, massive. Saka on that right wing back role, it's worked out really, really well for England. Contrastingly, Kieran Trippier on the opposite side have been critical of that position and playing that player in that position. No offence to Kieran Trippier, he's a right-sided player. He should be playing on the right if you want to play him in the team. Playing him on the left in a role that he's not used to, in the role that you do not get the best out of him. For a right-footed player playing left back, it just does not work. I don't care what anybody says, it just does not work. And England, the most criminal thing that they've done was not brought a backup left back to an injury-prone Luke Shaw. When you know that that's a problem, and fixing that would be a difficulty. But even he started Kieran Trippier from the very first moment. I never understand that. They've been imbalanced all the way through, but he did make the change at half time in the game against the Netherlands. Gareth Southgate brought Luke Shaw on, and what a surprise! It gave them better balance. They looked more controlled. They were much more threatening on the left-hand side because you've got a left-footed player who naturally plays in that position, playing in his normal position. What a surprise that it was working. What a surprise that it actually improved the team and the way they played. Fantastic. Luke Shaw came on and played a lot better. Gave England a lot better balance. Gave them a lot more of a threat down that left-hand side. The link up with Jude Bellingham at times was really, really strong. Even Harry Kane at times dragging over. Declan Rice as well, coming off the midfield. Really, really strong down that left-hand side. And Luke Shaw should be starting in this final. If he's fit enough to start, you would take him all day long to start this final. Because England need that balance. If they're going to continue with an imbalance down that left-hand side, they're going to have issues. But if they get the balance right, get Luke Shaw in the team, they will be better. I mean, all the way through the tournament, another point, super substitutes have been the big difference in many games. The Netherlands, maybe a taste of their own medicine. Wout Weghorst coming on to win the game against Poland, a super sub. Well, they were knocked out by a super sub, the Netherlands, in the end. Ollie Watkins, what a substitution that was. And give credit to Gareth Southgate for that. Ollie Watkins come on in the 81st minute for Harry Kane. Kane was losing his way a bit in the game. He wasn't making those runs in behind. He wasn't kind of penetrating the Netherlands defence. And what they needed, England, was that penetrative force, that focal point to get them forward, to make those runs in behind, to send the Netherlands defence back facing their own goal and running back towards their own goal. Ollie Watkins did that in abundance in 9 minutes. And the finish, I cannot say, it may not be the best quality finish or the best kind of showpiece finish, but it was certainly top class. From that tight angle to squeeze it in between the defender that's marking you, the keeper, and to squeeze it inside the left post from such a tight angle is a fabulous finish. And the quality that you have to have, and also the confidence you have to finish that, is just immense. And Ollie Watkins did that fantastically well. Absolutely amazing performance. And could make a claim that he could start the final. I wouldn't say that that's a sensible thing to do, because just because a player comes off the bench and scores doesn't mean that he ultimately comes in and he's going to score 3 goals in the next game. He had an impact and he showed up when he was needed. Don't get carried away. Great performance, great goal, gets them through, but I wouldn't disrespect anyone else in the team, especially Harry Kane, their captain, who played 81 minutes, got them their equaliser, got them back into the game. I wouldn't be too hasty in trying to make that change and bringing Ollie Watkins in from the start to upset the team. It could work, but it could also go the opposite way, and then you end up hamstringing yourself, and you do not want to make tests and test your kind of tactical balance in a final. Certainly not when you don't have much time to change it or actual time for it to make an impact. As I said, the critics were silenced. They proved their doubters wrong again, England. Again, relying on moments, but getting through it. Their mentality and their experience showing really, really well. And that's kind of give them a really good, inspired performance. That real high that they left that semi-final on gives them maybe a bit of a boost heading into the final. And we'll see what transcends from that. Speaking of which, we are going to get finally to our preview of the final after I reviewed the 2 semi-finals that Spain and England both progressed from, beating France and the Netherlands by 2-1 each. We're going to talk about what they've got against each other now. Let's talk about it then. both sides have a lot of pace and a lot of great ball carriers. That's one thing I mentioned when I talked about both teams previously, Spain and England, in the lead up to their semi-finals. They've got great ball carriers, players that can get the ball on the half turn and drive you forward. Spain have Lamine Yamal and Nico Williams, two very, very good players in carrying the ball forward, using their skill to get Spain on the attack. They've got other players, obviously, but from the wide areas, those are the two targets. Then England, Jude Bellingham, Phil Foden, carriers of the ball. Real good, kind of strong, confident, physical players that can get the ball, take it down, and run, and get you forward. England also have Bukayo Saka in the wide area that can speed down that wing, get them forward. They've got Luke Shaw if he wants to play him in that position down the left hand side. Same with Spain, they've got really good fullbacks, the likes of Marco Correa, and we'll see who comes in at right back for Spain this time round with Navas injured and Carvajal was already suspended. I don't know if he is suspended for the final, but if he isn't, he'll be back in the side and using those overlapping fullbacks. So both have got a lot of pace from the wide areas where they can threaten, they can oppose, or kind of impose themselves on the opposition. Their threat on the counter, that also leans into that pace idea of having that pace to carry it from one end of the pitch to the other on a counter attack. But they've got great quality and great finishers who can finish off those chances. They've got supreme confidence, both sides riding on a high, riding on a good moment, getting through to the finals, both with a lot of quality and a lot of confidence in the side, and maybe teetering on a bit of arrogance that, oh yeah, we can take on this team, either it be Spain or England, saying, you know, we can take them on. We're the better side. We're going to do this. That kind of leaning in on the arrogant side of things, where they're like, yeah, we're not going to be underdogs. We're not going to let them roll all over us. It only helps us in the neutral, because it could be a very exciting game from that point. Dani Olmo, I think for Spain, if he continues in that role in the 10, I think it could cause a lot of issues between the lines for England. We've seen at times where England have kind of not got that balance between the defenders in the midfield. It's been disconnected at times, where they've not been able to link up. Either they've been too close together and separated from the attackers, or they've been pushing a bit too high up and been separate from the defenders. If they get that balance right, Olmo could struggle, but if they get that slightly wrong, either Morata or Olmo can drop a bit deeper, play in between the lines and carry the ball wide, kind of hold the ball up and feed it to the wide players. In transition, I would say Spain would be slightly the stronger of the two sides. Not much in it. I said Spain might have been slightly weaker against France, because I thought France were very strong in transition. We've seen that early on, but Spain got to grips with that, which makes me feel that they've maybe got to grips with that problem they had with transitions. But I think if they get control of that Spain and balance that right, again, same with England, if they get balance in those positions and not commit too many bodies forward, get that kind of press right, then they could be very strong. But in transition, I think Spain are slightly just the better of the two sides, but not very much in it. Again, changes maybe in the side. As I said, there was a few suspensions for Spain for that for their semi-final. Robin Lenormand, of course, the centre-back, was suspended for that game against France. I don't think that really troubled them, but ultimately we'll see if he will come back into the side. I'm trying to figure out if Dani Carvajal, he is not suspended for the semi-final, or for the final, so that's a good sign. So they could make those two defensive changes. It doesn't look like anybody else is going to change in the Spanish side, because of course Pedri was their only other player that was in the team for Dani Olmo, and he's injured, so it doesn't look like they're going to make any more changes. And then for England, Luke Shaw on that side. Is he going to come in for Kieran Trippier on that left side, play his natural position, or is he not fit enough? Can he only play a half? Can he only play 60? We'll see. If he does come into the side, we'll see if that makes a difference for England. Luke Shaw is tipped to be in the side, and that might be the only change for England for the final. But changes could be afoot for both sides. Positive ones at that, but changes nonetheless. In terms of the stats then, saying I've got through all my opinions, the last meeting between these two sides came in the UEFA Nations League group games in 2018. England were beaten on home turf by 2-1 by Spain in the first of games in September 2018, and Spain beaten on their home turf by England 3-2 a month later. So both have shared the spoils in the last two meetings. Their last game at the Euros, England got the better of them. That was back in Euro 96, so that was quite a while ago, 28 years ago. Euro 96 in the quarterfinals, England won on penalties after a 0-0 draw in 120 minutes. That was their last Euros meeting. Spain are unbeaten in the last 9 games in all comps. England unbeaten in the last 6. That is the Euros, because they were beaten right before the Euros against Iceland. So England unbeaten in the last 6, Spain in the last 9. And both, actually, as I said at the start of the stream, are without a clean sheet in their last 3 games. Spain conceded against Georgia in their round of 16 game, in their quarter-final against Germany, and in their semi-final against France. Conceded in all 3, and the same with England. They conceded against Slovakia, they conceded against Switzerland, and they conceded against the Netherlands. So neither of the two confident with clean sheets in the last 3 games. But of course, as I said, Spain kept 3 clean sheets in their group, England 2. So that's still a strength of their sides. In terms of world rankings, the FIFA World Rankings, England are rated 5th in the world at the moment. Of course, the highest rated side left in the competition, obviously, because if they weren't, it would either be the likes of a France or a Belgium, who are higher up. I actually look at that now. England are the 3rd highest ranked European side in the world. France and Belgium better off. Argentina and Brazil make up the top 4 there. England 5th in the world, and Spain 8th in the world in terms of that. They're behind both Portugal and the Netherlands, England, Brazil, Belgium, France and Argentina. The 7 teams in terms of FIFA rankings are apparently better than Spain. So Spain ranked 8th in the world, England 5th, but that's all circumstantial because it really doesn't mean anything. Spain just beat the highest ranked side in Europe, in France, in the last round, who in turn beat Belgium, the 2nd highest ranked side. So it's all circumstantial. To the big point now. After all the stats, all the opinions, it's down to the big one, the prediction. What is my prediction for this? Well, I'm predicting a close game. I'm not predicting either side to run away with it, either side to kind of give their all and go full gung-ho and completely blast away the opposition. I think it'll be tight. I think it'll be close. I think we'll see goals. I don't think either side keeps a clean sheet. I think they both score. I think they both score really good goals. I wouldn't be surprised if both of these two players you can see on your screen get on the score sheet. Do put that bet on. Who knows? I'm not giving you betting advice. Do not take that advice. Although I don't think they'd be a bad price, those two, to be honest. My prediction is that Spain will win, but just. I think they'll win in 90 minutes. I don't think we'll get extra time or penalties. Although, to be honest, I said that we would get penalties in both of our semi-finals, and in the end we got nothing. Out of that, we didn't go to extra time in either of those games. So my predictions, maybe not as accurate, but I did think from the very first group game, and I will stick to it, and I will put the clip up. I had Spain down from the very first game that I watched them. I said they could win this competition. I'm sure I wasn't on my own, of course not, but I will stand with that. I think Spain will win this competition. I do think they'll win in 90 minutes, and I think my score prediction is that Spain will win 3-2. I am expecting a high-scoring final. 2 very good quality sides. They've been waiting for this. England have been waiting for their moment where they can unleash their attack. I think they will. I think Spain will just be the better side, but it'll be a very close-fought final. I don't think Spain will go 3-0 up or anything. I think it will be that kind of ping-pong tennis match. One scores, then the other scores, one scores, then the other scores, and then the winner from Spain, ultimately. Maybe not in that order, but I do think it will be a very tight, close-knit game, and neither side will run away with it. But I do think Spain will be our European champions. But again, I said that we would see a France-England final. I was half right on that front. I think I did expect England to go through from the semi-final. I expected France just to beat Spain on penalties, but Spain were the better side in that game ultimately. Maybe my heart led me rather than my head on that one, because I do support France, if you don't already know. But in the end, it doesn't matter. They're not through. And Spain and England play the final. And I think Spain will just pip it. Although I don't think England will let them away with anything too easily. Right, okay then. That's it. My prediction's done. Our preview of the Euro 2024 final is complete. We have just 2 days to go. Just over, what would I say, about 51 hours to go until kick-off in the Olympic Stadium in Berlin. And you can watch it live here on LFS. We'll have live watch-along commentary. Sunday, 8 o'clock. We'll be live from 7:45 with build-up, all the stats analysis and previews you need beforehand. And then we'll get the live watch-along commentary. Spain against England. Who will be crowned the European champions? We will find out Sunday at 8 o'clock. We'll also have a match reaction right afterwards, so we will stay right until very late in that game, right to the very end, if it does go to extra time and penalties, and then we will react to the winner eventually afterwards. Right, also on Monday we will have new details on our 24-25 season. The season, the date isn't released of when the season starts. You can probably guess, but we will release all that information, all the details about the new season at Monday at 9 o'clock. You shall not want to miss that on the channel. Right, that is it for the LFS podcast. We will have another one, maybe, I'll see, on Monday or for the new season. But one game to go before the 23-24 season completely comes to an end. It's been a wonderful season, and we've had a wonderful tournament. But who will be our European champions? Will it be Spain, or will it be England? We'll find out on Sunday. See you then. For now, have a great afternoon. Thanks for your company. Bye-bye.